Kasandrea, welcome to the Z Learning Podcast. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat.
My pleasure. So tell us a little bit about what you do at Higher Ed Social. From what I understand, you train social media managers who serve colleges and universities, or giving them the tools to optimize social engagement and to, basically help these colleges and universities put their best foot forward and build their marketing social media presence.
Definitely. Yeah. So we started as a community back in 2015 as a way to bring together folks who managed social media profiles for colleges and universities, and a little bit of knowledge sharing, a little bit of training and best practice, a little bit of help desk support, platform issues, that sort of thing. And now 6-7 years later, we have over 10,000 members in 80 countries. We've expanded to a subgroup for K-12 marketers as well. We also have a sub community for marketing comms and then admission specific comms as well.
Very cool. So, and K through 12. So are you telling me that elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools are also doing social media marketing?
They are. So we get a mix of folks. So some of them are PTA members, they're parents who maybe are a little bit techie and have been volunteered to manage the parent Facebook group, or they help maybe manage the school website or something like that. We also get a lot of our members from boarding schools, private institutions, schools that have to look to get students to come to them. So outside the public school system. And so they market just like every other college and university does. They are looking at how to showcase the student experience on these new digital communication platforms.
Very cool. This I think brings up an important point that I'd like to go into detail a little bit with you, and I think it will be very informative for my audience. I think that, as I'm a social media manager myself, and I think a lot of people think that social media is just for selling products, maybe for building one's personal brand, but there are many other aspects and benefits to social media that I think a lot of people don't think about. And that could be growing your presence and your image so that you attract more qualified, better culture fit employees, trying to have a sense of community, offline, like in the wider community, not just within the organization, but if you're a college or university, you have to have good relations with the surrounding town or city, with parents and teachers, boosting morale. There are so many other reasons that organizations might use social media. Can you go into some details that colleges, universities, and education in general uses social media for to reach their goals?
Yeah, so this was really kind of the impetus for starting this. Is higher ed institutions, colleges, universities, schools, they do actually sell a product, right? Education is a product. And they have customers, right? Students, but they also serve multiple different constituent audiences. And so how do you best communicate with them? Using these sort of new third millennium technologies. And so there is the admissions and recruiting piece of things, right? You want to attract, great caliber students who are excited to study at your particular institution. You want to showcase what makes your institution special, your corner of the world. The weather is a huge one. And you want to attract the students that you best serve. And encourage them. So getting them into your pipeline, of course. Then there is, on the backside, universities are deeply interested in what happens to the student, the customer, after they leave, right? We want to stay connected to our alumni. We have fealty groups, and especially here in the States, where someone went to college really does impact, sort of their fandom experience that they have on the outside, right? People put stickers on their car, they go to homecoming, they go to alumni events. And so that's something that other businesses typically don't have, right? Some of them do, right? Maybe the cult of Jeep, right? They're a brand that has that feel to you. Or Harley Davidson, right? They have those customers that are customers for life, as they say. But higher ed institutions are a little bit different in that. Also, our product is people, right? Is an educated populace, and so it's more than just selling a cup of coffee or selling the latest technology. It is an experience, which is what makes education one of the best sectors to work in, because you are literally changing lives every day. The other really cool thing about social for colleges and universities is showcasing that student experience and pulling back the veil to show the general public what is it about the transformative college experience, and what happens, the secret sauce of what happens on campuses. And then also to connect their campus community. We saw this a lot during COVID. The need to get information out to these multiple constituencies very quickly on a day-to-day changing basis, emergency communications with parents and students and families and moving parts and governmental organizations and shutdowns. And so social media was a very convenient way of doing that, rather than just sending out an email and hoping that somebody read their email. So social has some great place for that. And it's also, I think, what we're seeing with our young people these days is that need for community, right? We were all terrified that social media was going to strip away our humanity and we were going to forget how to communicate with others. And I think what we're seeing is the direct opposite of that. There is that crave for human connection, and humans as an animal, we crave that connection, whether that connection is face to face with a friend or over the internet with a friend we've never actually met in real life who lives 1,000 miles away. We see those relationships as just as valuable and just as equal to those. And so for educational institutions, they serve many masters, right? They've got all of these audiences to connect with, and social is a fantastic vehicle for them to meet the needs of those populations.
And thank you for saying that piece about the connection. I think that, yeah, the fact that everyone's talking to each other so much, the fact there was an explosion in video content during the pandemic, it actually shows that people want connection, I think, more than ever. And obviously somebody who has been tasked with managing the social media of their school, or who is a social media manager professional at a college or university and wants to meet other colleagues and optimize their game and learn more tips and tricks, can join your community. But I'm curious, what are some strategies that colleges and universities use? Is it addressing social issues? Is it hyping, big wins after the school's football team, has a victory? Or is it like what do you recommend that a lot of colleges and students, let's say you're a college or university, you don't have a big brand like Harvard, or University of Virginia or something. You're not like this super well known. You may not have a Division I football or basketball team. What would you recommend to try to kind of connect with your audience and get your brand more out there?
Yeah. So I think it first comes down to, we do this work in education. We work at these particular campuses because we believe in the mission of that organization. We believe in that secret sauce. And for the past 2 years, I have traveled across the US, visiting colleges on a 2-year road trip. And so I got to stop at hundreds of colleges and universities, big schools, small schools, schools you've heard of, schools you never have. And everyone at every campus was very excited to tell me about what makes their campus unique and special. Their students love it there. The faculty and staff who work there love it there. There wasn't ever a time when I talked to someone and they were like, I'm working here for now, but I would really rather be at MIT, or I would really rather be at Michigan. And so when you love a place, a product, a brand, a company, when you love it, social and what you do on social needs to be about showing what you love about that place, right? you can use all the tips and the tricks and the hacks and the gimmicks to get things out there. But all that's going to do is get you an audience that isn't the audience you want to be talking to, right? Um, and so what I would say for a school like that, I would say look at what your goals are, right? Set goals. What are you interested in? A lot of schools oversaturate their social media area. They have accounts for everything when they really don't need 50 or 100 accounts for different things, because you're splitting the attention of your audience. And then look at what your audience wants. What is that campus experience? And then look at the platforms individually and the demographics that are on those platforms to tailor your content to what that platform what's going to resonate with them. And so students typically are on Instagram. It's a very popular platform for traditional age college students. And so the content that colleges and universities are putting out on their accounts are typically geared towards that younger age demographic. They might showcase student life, they might showcase activities, the day-to-day nuances of what makes a student experience on that campus really shine. Whereas content that's maybe shared on Facebook with an older demographic might tailor more towards news stories that are going to get picked up locally, or faculty research, or how-to things for parents and families, wayfinding activities. How do I find the admissions office? How do I connect with financial aid? More transactional, because that's the population that's on there. And then, Twitter might be strictly news stories and customer service, right? And so there's a need to not only understand your campus, understand your audience, but also to understand the social platforms themselves and the audience that's on those platforms. It's not one size fits all. It's not create content once and just push it to everywhere. There really has to be a strategy behind it. And the smaller institutions, if you're a team of one or a small marketing team, you actually have a lot of great control over that strategy. And so I would say lean into that smallness and that differentiating factor, because when you focus on delivering a quality product, a quality educational experience, and you take care of your students, you take care of your alumni, you take care of your faculty and staff, a rising tide rises all ships, right? And so you have to have that offline experience be great, then layer on well thought out digital strategy for that online experience. And then the magic happens when those two things come together.
For sure. And, it seems like I think a lot of people might think, oh, every college university has a Facebook, an Instagram, a Twitter, a TikTok, whatever, and they might put up some videos or some pictures. But as I think you've made clear, it's much more dynamic than that. You've got alumni, keeping in touch with alumni. You have parents. You might want to attract the best professors or subject matter experts, as well as guest speakers. You have student life. There's a lot going on. There's a lot to manage. It's probably, especially if it's a bigger school, you probably need a team in place. What do you do to engage or incentivize maybe students? I'm sure you have a strategy for getting user-generated content, like maybe utilizing things from either students, teachers, administrators, and kind of curating that content. How do you kind of like find student or faculty partners to kind of share in your social media vision?
Yeah, so this is really great. And it kind of takes advantage of a basic human need to give our opinions on things, right? Everybody wants to be asked for their opinion. Young, old, student, faculty. If you ask someone, they will tell you their opinion, right? That's what makes Twitter so fun. So I would say for colleges and universities, especially the larger your organization is, you've got to have a very visible social and marketing team, and you've got to have processes in place to get those feelers out to the different departments and have your evangelists in those different areas, your touch point, whoever that touch point might be, to keep you posted on what's happening in that department, right? So, marketing can't always know about everything that's happening with, the faculty in the communication department, or everything that's going on with, new student connections. And so having a very visible marketing team and then intentionally setting up your campus partners in such a way that it makes it easy for them to give you the information. We can see some campuses have a roundtable session where once a week these campus partners get together and they talk about the events they have coming up, and keeping each other abreast of things. Sometimes it might be a web form where campus partners can upload a blurb or a picture or something that they have going on. Sometimes it might be inviting the social and marketing team to an event that's coming up and making sure that somebody is coming with the campus photographer to get some great images, those sort of things. And so I think people are already doing amazing work on your campus. The trick is, how do you get them to tell you about it in a way that doesn't add extra work to their plate? So thinking about what those strategies are and then being very visible with them, right? Don't hide that link on your website if you're asking for content. Make it very easy. Go and knock on doors. When I go meet with faculty for meetings, I like to bring donuts, right? If you bring snacks for people, they are automatically going to like you a little bit more.
Donuts always work.
Right? Warm Krispy Kreme donuts are the great mediator of many things. And sort of this idea and this concept of, sharing over food, right? That's a ingrained human need. And so if you can build those relationships and help them see you as a partner in this, right? I know you guys are doing really cool things. I want to help get the word out about your really cool things, tapping into that basic human need to promote themselves. And so pulling that in. And then students, of course, love to be shouted out, right? Everybody wants to hear that they're doing good work. And so doing the same process for your students. Do they know, do you have a very visible campus hashtag that your students know that they can use and that they might get shouted out on the main account? Do you have student leaders on your campus? Everyone does. Do you have a way to leverage their campus celebrity standing to then also keep you abreast of activities just the same way your faculty and staff are, right? So your campus leaders, your student government team, your presidents and of your Greek life organizations, your campus organizations, all of them have a marketing person usually for every club. And so having the same process for students to be able to send that information in. Campuses who tell me they have a struggle with getting user-generated content, it's usually not the content, it's the process they have set up to attract that content. Something is a disconnect in there. And then having someone in your office who is willing to be that donut person to go out and make and build those relationships. Both of those being super important.
I think they have a donut problem at those places. They need donuts. Then they're going to get more people involved.
Yep. And as the communications professional, it's your job to draw that story out of other people, right? To get them to light up when they're talking about that thing that excites them. And so we need, people might not get it, right? Or they just assume, well, doesn't everybody want to learn about sloths? Well, maybe, but like how do you draw that out of someone and craft a story around it? That is the job of the communications professional. And so to get people to open up to you, they've got to be comfortable. They've got to know that you also have their best interest at heart. And that's going to boil down to the relationship.
Right. And I would imagine also having those strategic partnerships, not only in the people who are kind of the designated marketing people within the different organizations and different campus clubs, but I'm sure there's always that one science professor who has like viral YouTube or TikTok videos, or there's always a couple influencer students on campus, and probably working with them can help. I know that there's so much that goes into the strategy, and people who want to learn more can get involved with Higher Ed Social. But maybe you could take my listeners through just a very brief overview. They're probably wondering, what are the different platforms, the different channels, tactics you're using more, and how. So and you can what I would imagine that probably for alumni engagement, it's a lot more Facebook, LinkedIn, email. Probably for a lot of students, it's probably like all TikTok now, maybe Instagram, Reels. Maybe it's I don't know if you have like student takeovers where they do stories for the day, but maybe you could walk us through just a little bit of a general overview of the different platforms you use and kind of like their function, like their, how they fit into the overall, their piece of the overall pie of the social media.
Yeah. So I think if you first start and understand and map your student experience journey from prospective student to admissions to orientation and onboarding, matriculation, and then graduation. And most campuses don't do this very well. Most campuses exist in silos. So prospecting hands them off to admissions, who hands them off to orientation, who hands them off to advising, who hands them off to alumni, and they never talk to each other. And so accurately mapping what the student experience is like from end to end is a fantastic place to start with any strategy on campus. And then understanding what are your goals for interacting with students at those different points in their process, right? So a prospecting student is interested in finding out, is this the right campus for me? Do they offer what I want? Can I find myself a home here, right? And so your content is going to reflect that. And it can be on the standard platforms that you would think, right? Alumni might be more resonant on LinkedIn. Young students might be resonant on more TikTok. You do want to go where the eyeballs are. But there are often opportunities that can be hidden to explore different pieces of that puzzle, right? So a prospective student who wants to know, does XYZ college have a good program for the major I'm going into? They should definitely be on LinkedIn, looking at the alumni from that college and where that college is sending their graduates, right? We might not think that 16, 17-year-olds are on LinkedIn, but if the content is there and the school is putting out alumni spotlights about what they're doing, it's going to help raise that panache for the student to say, oh, XYZ major at this school didn't show up on any of those false ranking things, but here's an actual alumni from that school doing the job that I want to do, right? So you can kind of break sort of those preconceived stereotypes with that. We are seeing Instagram and TikTok being hugely successful in showcasing the student experience to prospective students in the prospecting and alumni pieces of things. So you'll see a lot of that. We're seeing colleges and universities have their own admissions account for those sort of things, very process oriented as well, talking about deadlines, requirements, those sort of things, which can be really helpful. Tied to that, most university websites are actually quite cumbersome and difficult to navigate. And so a lot of times what you're going to see on social is manifestations of that, right? If a social account is constantly having to push out informations about deadlines, it probably means that that information is very difficult to source on a website. And so that's where it comes back to understanding that student process and what tools you already have in place. Current students, right, thinking about how they fill their day and what they do. Earlier in the pipeline, right, a freshman or a sophomore might be really interested in connecting with groups on their campus clubs. I think it's a misnomer to say young people aren't necessarily on Facebook. They are. They just don't use it in the way that those of us in our 30s or 40s use it, right? They don't sit on their timeline and wait for posts to come find them. They're much more direct messaging. They're much more managing in messages and in groups, which is why Facebook spun those off into different apps, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which makes sense if you think about this population of student, right? They probably got a Facebook when they were 12, 13. It was probably set up by mom and dad, and their first friends were mom and dad and grandma and grandpa. So of course they're not going to use newsfeed because their mom and dad and their grandma and grandpa are still their friend on Facebook, right? Every teenager wants privacy. That's not new.
Right.
And so they're using it differently there. But who you do have on Facebook is an awful lot of parents, and parents want to talk to each other. So you do see a lot of universities managing parent Facebook groups on there. Those tend to be very popular as an avenue for getting information out to the parents as well. And then I would say, LinkedIn is a fantastic space that I think is underutilized. There's not a lot of content creation on LinkedIn, and it's a fantastic space to showcase those news stories that are coming out about your faculty. Those are really fun. Platforms like TikTok showcase the fun stuff. right? There's a professor on TikTok who talks about sloths from the Carnegie Museum, and he's just the sweetest older gentleman, and everyone loves him, right? Personality sells. People are looking for that human relationship. Nobody goes online hoping to be bored to death. So, right, the concept of edutainment. And it doesn't mean that you can't have smart things happening on TikTok, right? We're seeing a ton of folks in finance talking about personal finance things and how to make money and how to buy a car and how to fix things, right?
That's the stuff
People
they
want
should teach more in university too.
exactly, yeah. So how do we get people to be better storytellers, right? It's a way of making the content engaging. And if we've done our job and we've hired great faculty members who are great educators but also teach them how to be great storytellers, that content, then you have overwhelming amounts of it.
Yeah, and it seems like a lot of it at the end of the day is kind of leveraging that on-campus experience and bringing it online, which I'm sure was hugely important during the pandemic, which we can go into if you want. But I think a big thing about social media for colleges and universities is that you mentioned how a lot of these departments are siloed, and it's same with like all organizations. And I think what a good social media manager can do at college or university is kind of break down that bureaucracy, and instead of having a kind of like a nameless, faceless bureaucracy of departments that can feel overwhelming, and making it more social, more connected, more human. And I think that's really great what you're doing. Let's go into a little bit also with what you do with you're also the founder of My Advisor Says, where you help students bring their dreams of college education to life. And you're also at University of South Florida. You're also you do the social media management at USF? Is that?
Nope, I'm actually an academic advisor in my
Oh,
day
okay.
job at
Oh, wow.
USF. So totally different.
Wow. So how did you get into social media management of colleges, universities, and building higher ed social? How did that come
Yeah,
together?
yeah. So when I graduated college in '05, I thought I was going to work in human resources, and I was going to be the person to plan office birthday parties and go to career fairs and talk about my company. And I did that for a large multinational concrete company, and I hated it. It lasted 30 days and I quit. I was like, I can't do this. This is not for me. And I went back and had an opportunity to work at my alma mater in the visitation coordinator's office with a friend of mine, and had an amazing experience. And they turned me on to working at a college, right? You can actually do this as a career. So I went back, did my master's in education, only to graduate right into the recession of '08, which was
Mm,
joyful
yeah.
as a student with a master's degree. And I waited tables for 2 years and, really contemplated my life goals of what was going on at that point. And I've always really deeply loved business. I've loved the idea of managing and working with people. My undergrad degree is in business management and industrial psychology. So I went back and did my MBA, thinking, well, maybe I'll step back into the corporate world, go into marketing. Social was kind of just becoming a real thing now that we had iPhones and apps were becoming a thing. And so I joined a Facebook group online from a woman named Kate Buck Jr., and she had one of the very first social media management training courses out there. And I met her because she was also a beta user for Pinterest when it launched, and joined and took her training and was really impressed with it. And I was in her Facebook group. And 2013, 2014, really thinking about how we could use social for good, working with our students. At the time I had taken a college advising position at a community college and was working with students and really looking at, I'm just one person, how can I get my message out to my thousands and thousands of students at my college? And so I was like, well, I use Facebook, let's try to do this too. So took that training, loved it. Through that group, someone one day posted, hey, does anybody else work for a college? Because the processes are so weird and I don't know how this works. And I piped up and I was like, I work at a college. I can totally understand what you mean about things moving really slowly. Let's chat. And so Higher Ed Social was born out of that. I started a little Facebook group to put these 6 people together so we could chat about what makes higher ed, a different product to sell on social.
Mhm.
And that now 7 years later, we're 10,000 members,
Wow.
which is bananas to think about. It is all slow organic growth, just as we brought people in. And it was really tapping into a need, because what we were seeing as universities started to embrace social as another piece of their marketing mix, is we saw big universities with budget, well-resourced universities, were headhunting and poaching talent from corporate, right? They wanted folks who had managed large brands, Coca-Cola, Disney, Applebee's, right? They were taking their social media people well trained in marketing, and they were putting them into a university system, but not really explaining what makes a university. The egos, the silos, the glacial pace of change. And so those folks needed to learn the university process. On the other side, we were also seeing folks who were in a university, student affairs people, faculty, staff, alumni affairs, were being told, here's a Facebook page, go do it.
Yeah. Right. Do the
With no
tweets for us.
marketing training,
Yeah.
right? You might have a PhD in philosophy, but that doesn't tell you how to run a Twitter account.
Right.
And with academics, we deeply love being right. And we do not like asking for help, but we do love learning. And so how could we bring those two sides together so we can learn from each other, right? So it's not a, you don't know what you're doing, but more of a, hey, I've seen this before, let me help you understand. And so coming together from that aspect of, we all have really fun jobs, we love our campuses, great things, amazing things are happening here. We're curing diseases, we're doing research, we are upwardly mobile, lifting, generations out of poverty. This is a super fun time to work in education, but we just need to know, some technical expertise. And so the group really came out of that. We expanded into trainings and best practices, white papers, webinars. We now have an awards program that we give out annually to showcase amazing content. And it's a really happy, wonderful, supportive space on the internet, which I don't think you find oftentimes. But for example, pre-COVID, if somebody was having a bad day on their campus or something was going wrong, we would, DoorDash them, donuts or wine to their office, and people from around the country. When Texas lost power, over the winter, the year that happened, we had folks, hey, what content do you need? You can't get to your computer, I'll call, we'll get a member in another country to help with that and send that back to you. So that way you can get what you need to do to push out your information from your colleges. When we had members stuck overseas when the pandemic was happening, it was coordinating, okay, we can get you to Dublin. Okay, who can put them up in Dublin before we can get them on a flight back to the States? And so just an amazingly wonderful, supportive community that I am so lucky to get to know these people. And hopefully it just continues to grow from here.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I think that anybody who, whether they come from a marketing background, they're thinking to work, do marketing communications for college or university, or they just got in that role and they're trying to navigate it, or like you said, a student or a faculty member, or somebody without a marketing or social media marketing background who's now been tasked with doing it, or even at a school or something, I think should definitely get involved with your group.
Yeah.
And it's pretty incredible that it started with those few people and now it's over 10,000 strong, and it sounds like a wonderful, nice, supportive environment. And I think it answers the question that I had, was like, who's it for? Is it for somebody who's already a social media manager? But it sounds like it's bringing so many people together with different areas of expertise, from people who did marketing,
does.
Right, for people with a business background or who did marketing for corporate, now doing it at the university level, or people with no marketing background who now are learning how to do that for the university. That's really cool. I'd like to just, at the end of this, kind of go, I know you're in Tampa. Tell us a little bit about some of the philanthropic work you're involved in, and also My Advisor. Yeah, love to know a little bit.
Definitely. Yeah. So Higher Ed Social, definitely come and check us out. We have a presence on all the platforms, Facebook, Clubhouse, Twitter Spaces, LinkedIn. We have a group, we have a page, we have a Facebook page and a group.
We'll link all that up in the show notes.
Yeah, so we'll put those in there. Our society actually accepts folks from student members, so folks who want to get into this and maybe they're coming through school, undergrad or graduate school to get into that. We also accept folks who are at a college or university, but we also have an arm of our organization that for folks in corporate, because our members do, cross that line. They go out to corporate, they come from corporate, and there's a lot of things we can learn from folks with the big budget that are selling products and widgets outside the university. So we definitely have a ton we have a spot for everyone. Basically, if you're interested in internet culture and want to watch cat memes with us, we have a place for you. Down here in Tampa is where I'm based. So great weather most of the time. Tampa's my hometown. And I just haven't had an opportunity to leave yet. So I'm down here at the University of South Florida as an academic advisor, as we mentioned. And then from that, what I learned from being in advising is there's an awful lot of students who have the desire to go to college, but aren't getting the help that they need to get there. I know I myself went to a very large new high school that was built. I was only the second graduating class, and we had 3,000 people in our high school. We had over 600 in our graduating class, and one person who was designated to help us go to college. And being myself, I'm an orphan. I was in foster care for a little bit. I was adopted by a relative, right? There really wasn't anybody in my family who could show me how to do that. And so I got some really great mentors in my life. I took a gap year. I worked at the zoo. It was fantastic. And had some folks help me navigate the admissions process and get involved and actually attend USF for my bachelor's degree, apply for scholarships. And when I was working at the community college, what I noticed is a lot of students coming through that were in the same boat. They knew they wanted to go to college, but they weren't sure how to make that happen. And no one in their life could really show them how. And so I figured, well, I'm a kid from the trailer park and I got a doctorate degree from Vanderbilt. I can show anyone else how to do it. So started this company. And we work with middle school students, high school students to look at, where do you want to go? What do you want to study? What kind of university or college is going to be a good fit? Do you want to start at a community college? Do you want to take AP exams? Are you looking for a big school experience, a small school experience? How do you feel about snow? Big questions, right? Harvard is great, but it is in Boston and it snows a lot in Boston. So those kind of conversations with students. And so from that, I really wanted to work with low-income first-gen students from my work at the community college. And so I joined recently, a couple of years ago, a nonprofit in our area called Cetera. And I'm now the vice president of their board, and we work to help pipeline students with experience in foster care into colleges and universities. And so I sit on a state of Florida work group and a national work group from the Advising Association, and we look at how can states support students and unaccompanied minors, folks who've been adopted out of the system, to take advantage of the opportunities that are out there. We know that college helps with social mobility. We know that a college graduate will earn at least $1 million over the course of their lifetime, more than a high school graduate. And we want our young people to know that there are paths that are out there, right? Maybe college isn't for them, but what about a trade school? What about a mechanics? What about a license, an electrician, plumbing? There's all these trades that desperately need people. And there's training programs for them at your local community colleges and state colleges. And so students often don't know that these programs are out there for them and that there's tons of options post high school, even if they didn't have a great high school experience, even if they felt warehoused and their college was big and no one really gave them that individual attention, but they do have options. And that for these students coming out with experience in foster care here in the state of Florida, they can attend college completely free until they're 28, as many degrees as they want. Many colleges, many states have programs like this. Strangely enough, in Texas, they can go to college for the rest of their life completely for free.
Really?
Which is you're like, Texas.
Wow.
One of the things they're doing amazing in education, and it makes sense, right? These are students who, through no fault of their own, have had the adults in their life let them down. And so, how can we ensure that they have a path out of poverty, that they have a path out of these generational cyclical patterns in there? Nationally, we see that the average percentage of student who wants to go to college, right, that it's a very high proportion for these students with experience in foster care, but only about 2% will finish a bachelor's degree despite having all of these programs. And so how can we help them with these processes? Because we know that the potential results for them, if they do not, are really grim, right? 1 in 3 will end up incarcerated. 1 in 2 will be homeless before they're 25. We know that they are at greater risk for becoming parents before they're ready. We know that they're at greater risk for being human trafficked, or to be exposed to adverse life conditions. And so our nonprofit works with universities and colleges and state organizations to help get everyone to the table to have that warm handoff. It's all about building relationships, just like in social. It's about connecting that social worker to that person at the community college who's connected to that financial aid person, who's connected to that person at the university, so that that student experiences a warm handoff through the process. I think that's what's really so interesting to me, because I am an advisor. I live in a communication department. I work with communication faculty, but I'm a business major. So I'm deeply interested in efficiency of process and how things work. And when we look at what's not working, it is almost always a process problem, not a people problem. Systems are designed to give you an output, and they are designed to give you the output that you're getting. And so if we don't like what we're getting out the other side, it's probably not the people, it's probably the process. And so I really enjoy helping schools, universities, students, make that process as easy as possible to achieve the goals that they want to go into.
I love that. And your passion for what you do for your students, and the universities you work with really shines through. And I think
Thank
that,
you.
as you're speaking, I'm thinking like, what we call it, Facebook, let's call it the social network. All these social platforms are social networks.
Mhm.
I think that the key to it, which I think you embody in your work, is you've got to be strong in both the social and the networking part of it. That if one is out of line, it's not going to work. You have to have them equal. And thank you so much for being on the Z Learning podcast. I'll definitely put in the show notes where people can find you, can learn more
Yeah,
about
come find
higher
us.
ed, the Facebook group, as well as all the other platforms that they can find it on, and my advisor. And thank you so much for being on. Hope to have you on again sometime soon.
Definitely. Yeah. Thanks for having me. And folks online, if I can be of any help to you, feel free to reach out. Let's connect on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. I'm on all of it. I love meeting people who are doing really cool things and projects in the education or business and ed tech sectors. So if I can help in any way, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll put that info in there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Zev. I appreciate it. Talk to you
Bye.
soon.